I'm here to speak to you about the Ceredigion Museum as a hub for community activity and engagement. And last year, the museum was 40 years old, so to celebrate, we delivered a series of projects. The museum has always had strong links with its communities in and around the town. As an old cinema, many people have strong memories connected to their youth with the building, and we wanted to look at ways of re-engaging old audiences and bringing in new ones. Our objects and collections are at the heart of our learning and engagement. We received funding from the Arts Council of Wales and Cynnal County for a series of engagement projects for the museum service, and after an open submission process we chose Jeanette Platten as our artist in residence. Her aims were to engage community groups and individuals with the museum and its collection, exploring sense of place and to work with new audiences in and around Aberystwyth, to produce an artistically innovative, adaptable exhibition that visitors could visit over its duration and to encourage a wider sense of ownership of the museum. So only a few things. Jeanette had little time really to explore the collection before the exhibition date started, so she concentrated on an object that had drawn her interest immediately from the collection, which was the Welsh Hat. The Welsh Hat holds an iconic place in the identity of Wales and in our sense of place as well. And just a quote from Michael Friedman, our previous curator of the museum: "Despite their fragility, over 160 Welsh hats have survived. They're the only type of mint 19th century hat to have survived in these numbers. Not even 19th century top hats, which were produced in their millions, have survived in this quantity, and there are certainly very few surviving hats of any other sort, including men's hats and other accessories which date back to the 1850s and 60s. So this is an indication of the importance placed on Welsh hats by those who wore them, those who inherited them, and those who now curate them." So the project was called Nid yw hyn yn het, or Not Hat Is This. You can ask me about that afterwards. Jeanette's concept came from her memories of visiting Aberystwyth as a child and going to the beach. So the Welsh Hat reminded her of a sandcastle, and so she suggested we build 160 Welsh Hat sandcastles. And in some ways, this was very much a live performance event where we worked with the local artist who filmed it, and we also worked with local art school students to make it happen. 5 of us dressed as Welsh ladies and were filmed building the sandcastles while the others prepared behind the scenes. And the power of the piece lay in the subtlety created by the final washing away of the sandcastles and the suggestion of these fragile objects being destroyed. And it's been fascinating since then to see the uncovering of the ancient petrified forest. I don't know if any of you have seen that on the news since the winter storms that brought many visitors to the beach at Ynys right above where we were creating the sandcastle, and an uncovering of a history thought lost. We then edited the film for showing in the museum gallery, and Jeanette's very precise and polished way of working really challenged the staff. Working with limited resources in a county museum can make everyone very resourceful, but can also create problems with perfection, and Jeanette taught us all a lot in that respect, from detailing her design and print to the quality of the film that we produced. So for the next stage of the project, Jeanette, you can't see the hat very well there, refocused her attention on the museum collection, the staff, and our audiences. The museum has been slowly building plans for a development project to expand into the building next door to the museum with ground floor access, because we have currently 2 entrances, people are clear where they go. We wanted to bring more attention to the residency by hosting the second part of her project on the street level for all to see. The museum continues to plan to work on this with a Heritage Lottery Fund bid going in June, and that will include education rooms and a merger for our tourist information service. And Jeanette's exhibition directly fed into our feasibility study with over 2,000 people coming into that space during the 6 weeks of the summer last year, and that was only for 6 weeks as well. Ceredigion, a natural selection then, was the next part of the project and what it was called. Does random selection lead to natural selection of the fittest object was her starting point. Ceredigion, a natural selection, explores how random choice can lead to selection of objects and memories. All museums illustrate the evolution of objects. They record why some objects are collected and saved for future generations, whilst others are unrecorded and disappear from our collective psyche. So Ceredigion Museum collects Ceredigion-related objects, a selection policy and process that holds on to local identity and preserves it for the future. So members of the public were then invited to evolve this concept further, looking at what it is we hold and what helps us to remember. So each participant randomly created a store code using the museum's box abbreviation. The selected box was then found and the content shown to the person who chose it. They were then asked to create a reply to the archived object by choosing an item that they owned that responds in some way to the museum object, anything the original object made them go in search of. That was my object. 30 individuals were involved in pairings through group workshops and individual conversations. The objects were then displayed in the shop in a rolling sequence of 10 pairs of objects, personal objects alongside the museum object with the text that the individuals had written in response. Many of these were moving, some funny, some very literal, others abstract, but it was clear from the visitors that everyone was able to engage and bring their own story and memory to the space and to the objects. So outcomes really then were increased participation in the arts and heritage for local people. We worked with many new groups, including Mind Aberystwyth Art Group, Muscular Dystrophy Charity Volunteers. We engaged museum friends in a new way, and lots of audience development for the museum. For the future, we want to continue working with Ginecca on a project called The Gospel Ship. Taking inspiration from the original ship prints on display in the museum, the Gospel Ship will be a life-size replica of a 19th century print, working directly with people who still have a connection with the sea. It will show modern-day responses to the age-old questions. How do we make sense of the demands of modern-day living? And how do 19th century values compare to the present day? The responses will then be printed onto a modern-day clipper and travel along the Welsh coastline with an exhibition to follow.